Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Politdigm Podcast. My name is Red, and today I'm joined by my co-host Alpha.
Hi.
Today is the 14th of February, and there is absolutely nothing special about today. Nothing at all. It's just another day in February and nothing that worth mentioning, other than the fact that we are recording this on the same day that it comes out. So other than that, absolutely nothing worth mentioning. No any sort of event or anything that would have any sort of meaning.
I think we get it. I think they get it.
I want to die. Anyways, this week is Alpha's week, and he decided, in for the festive events that have been going on this week, he decided to choose a very nice and happy, definitely not morbid and disturbing topic.
Racist.
Yeah, so very casual thing to do. However, I do want to say two little things. One is that I am sick as a dog. I am nasally. I have a cold, and I've been coughing off my lungs for the last few days. So if I sound extremely fucked up, is because I am. So good thing that Alpha is going to be mostly talking today. Of course, I'm going to,
Yeah,
ramble.
this is going to be a short blog. We're going to have at least I hope, a bit of a back and forth.
But I am glad that at least you're going to be able to be driving the conversation, because imagine if even though we were supposed to record either yesterday or we could have recorded on Monday, I would probably not have been able to record because my voice was struggling. Like I could barely talk and shit. So
I imagine it would sound like you were giving a head to a tree or something like that.
yeah, it sounded like I had like a fiery pit of hell in my throat.
Fiery pit of hell.
Yeah,
that's the one. At least that's how it feels.
Yeah, I've been pretty sick. I don't know why, but it just kind of started like with some really bad kind of coughing, and then one morning I woke up and I was like, "Oh boy, I feel like a corpse," and then I've been getting better.
As you do. So,
yeah. The other thing I wanted to say is a little thank you to our viewers and our listeners, depending on where you're watching this, for the support lately. We've been, since December, during the month of January, kind of had a slow month, but January is always a slow month for everybody. In every what's the word, sector of creative content or some shit. Forgetting the word, I can't remember it, so I'm gonna make up shit.
January is the month where you look back and say, "Wow, what a great year we had."
Wow, I want to die. That was awful. Please.
I hate January. It's cold, it's long, it's miserable. You just came out of Christmas vacation. You still have the taste of freedom in the tip of your tongue, and yet you gotta go back to fucking work.
Yeah, and so we had a little bit of a slow month, but hey, in the last few weeks, we've been doing good. We are, on YouTube mostly is where we obviously post most of our content. If you haven't checked it out, we have our main channel where we have our one of the series that we're doing right now, which is Politdigm Reads, and that's been popping off. We currently only have like 6 episodes published, and we already have like 1/3 of the views we have on the podcast channel, and the podcast channel has 31 episodes, and as of today we'll have 32. So the amount of content is quite a large difference in amount, but people have been really enjoying it over there, and I'm very glad to see that that all the work we've been putting in is paying off, and that people are enjoying it. So I wanted to kind of say thank you for all the support lately. And with that being said, if you would also like to support us even more, you can do that over at Patreon. However, if you can support us on Patreon and you can't help us, in monetary ways, you can always check out our website to check out how you can support us in alternative forms. In fact, I've said this before, and in many ways, the support that you can, or the so-called alternative support, is much more useful than just throwing money at us. So make sure to check that out. You can also join our public Discord server. And if you join our public Discord server and also happen to support us on Patreon, you also get access to some special perks on our Discord server, and you can, for example, submit questions for our weekly podcast Q&A, where at the end of each episode of the podcast, like today, we will, if we have questions, we will try to answer your questions at the end of each episode. And also, don't forget to check out our social media platforms, where we keep you updated on the newest content that's coming out, new things we're working on, or we might, do a little like a survey or something, asking you what type of content you would want to see. So if you want to interact with us directly other than on Discord, you can always do that through social media platforms. And with that being said, I don't really have anything to say anymore. So Alpha, you can get racist. I mean, talk about racism. What?
What the fuck?
Whoa,
Yeah.
huh? Get racist with it.
This is a topic that we have discussed a lot.
Yep.
I don't think we ever had a dedicated episode or a blog written about it. And as such,
We've thought we've like had racist adjacent.
yeah, we've had racist
I
adjacent
mean,
blogs
yeah,
and
like that talk
questions,
about
but we never discussed racism.
yeah, like the racism as like the concept itself rather than the side effects of said racism.
Yeah. So, first things first. The the blog was really short, and I wanted it to be short, and I had a lot of trouble trying to figure out what I was going to put in the blog and what I was going to leave out, and we were just left with this bare bones kind of article. So we are going to compensate a little bit on today's podcast.
Yep. Plus, it's also a topic that I'm also very knowledgeable on. So, which is good because usually we like talk about things that either I know a lot about and you know nothing, or you know a lot about and I know nothing. So it's good to have like a
Yeah.
topic that we're both very knowledgeable in, so we can actually have like a proper conversation rather than just like one of us just listening to the other and just going, yeah, yep, yeah, good, yep, and that's the whole
Yeah.
episode, and that's not very interesting.
So I want to turn back time to the good old days when the Spanish Inquisition appeared.
It's
Um,
always the Spanish Inquisition.
it's always the Spanish Inquisition. Actually, not this time. It's just the conquistadors. So racism has always existed. This notion that not by this name, but this notion that a certain group of people was inferior to another group because of the place where they were from. But it didn't have the name racism.
Yeah, just suspicion.
Not suspicion, just
No,
xenophobia.
I'm joking, obviously.
Yeah. So, where the fuck did it come from? It's quite simple, actually. 15th century, 16th century, both Portugal and Spain started to be a little wacky, do this little thing where they just grabbed their little ships and went around the globe,
Good old colonialism.
colonialism.
Yeah.
And at that time, they had this religious rule that basically said if you find a place that has no culture, it is within your rights to claim that place for the crown and the church and to indoctrinate the people into religion.
Yeah, convert them essentially. It's like
Be-
conversion therapy, but like
Yeah.
the original version of it.
And so they looked at a lot of these fertile lands with people that were deemed uncivilized, but obviously had cultures. And they
Yeah.
said, you don't have any culture, therefore, we legally have a right to own this land.
Yeah, they saw them as like it was like barbarism. They thought that, any civilization that like didn't set, it wasn't up to their standards. You basically saw them as like a subhuman animals, and you saw it as like your divine right to introduce them to Christianity because you're a bunch of assholes.
Especially the Spanish. The Spanish did this a lot in the Native Americans. But they had one big problem, which was the fact that they outlawed any type of weapons in in the American continent. Therefore, for the protection of the colonists, they had to import a small army to a lot of different places. And as expansion grew, that army was no longer a small army, it was a big army. And the big army that couldn't protect every single territory that was being occupied. And whenever those territories were not being protected by the army, they were usually attacked with raids by the native population. This was costly and inefficient. So when it was the turn for the British to
British.
look at the colonies, they instead said, no, you can have weapons inside the colonies. And as such, there was no longer a need for the British people. God damn it,
Colonials.
uh, yeah, the British colonials. Thank you, to be under the protection of an army, and that helped them basically grow roots in these new lands a lot faster, and especially against both the native population and the neighboring uh, colonies from the other different European powers. And so people basically moved their whole basis of operation to these colonies and they lived relatively safely. But they used a lot of slave labor. And as such, people were no longer being brought just from the African continent as slaves. They were also being bred inside of these colonies to be slaves the moment that they were born. And as time progressed and this supposedly newfound age of enlightenment, reason, and philosophy came about in the 18th and 19th century, people started asking, okay, I know that they are worse than us, but why? What is the reason? And let's not turn to religion for this. Why are they inferior to us?
Yeah, there was a time. Sorry to stop you,
No,
but
no, no, go for it.
there was, and this is even like you're talking about now, like purely like during the colonial times. Well, like this is something that's much like older too, because if I remember correctly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure that like even before that, even like just in Europe, just to like compare us to each other, it wouldn't be racism then, it would more like xenophobia, but we already kind of like tried to use each other's appearance, like physical appearance, to be like a example, or like a some sort of divine not imagery, but like a sign that you were lesser than this other group. And during the time of like during colonialism, this they took that to the next level. They they would, for example, there was one of the famous things that they did was like they try to like answer racism or try to justify racism with science, right? With
I'm
pseudoscience.
going there. Don't spoil it. God damn it.
But fuck you, I'll do it. I'll tell you the whole
No,
thing.
don't do it. Ah, God damn it.
No, go ahead, go ahead. I'm joking. Go ahead.
Yeah, because the way that it was done is actually not as straightforward as I thought it was going. I thought it was. I mentioned this fine gentleman, um, in my article who is named
You cannot remember.
John Frederick Bloomberg or something like that. He was German. Okay,
Yeah,
let's just call him John.
John.
He was Johann. I'm pretty sure. Let's just call him John.
Johan.
Johann. Johann Frederick Bloomberg. Something
Ooh,
like that.
yes.
So he was a lot of things, one of which was an anthropologist, and he studied human, not evolution, because the concept of evolution didn't exist at the time. But in the latest part of the
Yeah,
18th
development, I
century,
would say.
no, they had a term, degeneracy. It didn't have the same meaning as us.
Huh.
It wasn't a bad thing. It was just the idea that as time went on and things changed from their original selves, they degenerated.
Huh.
Going back to the idea that things were created purely and
Oh
at
yeah,
the end.
yeah. I get. Yeah, I actually have a good story when you're done about that exact thing. If you're not, I
Yeah,
mean, I've already told you this, but I want to say it on the episode. But I
yeah.
guess that's probably where you're going anyway. So, yeah.
So he made a study where he compared the different attributes and aspects of a lot of human skulls, and he came to to the supposed conclusion that humans were what's the words
Div-
separated
yeah,
to
divided. Yeah.
five different groups: the Caucasian or white slash East Asian race, the Mongolian yellow race, which was more of East Asia. Sorry, the other one was Western Asia. Uh, th- sorry, the Malayan or brown race, the Ethiopian or black race and the America or red race. Now, I said race a lot, but he didn't use this term in his studies or in his findings. It was later introduced by other scholars, air quotes. It is extremely important to make make it as clear as possible that Mr. John was, from all that I've seen, not someone that believed in racial superiority. What he studied were, at the end, physical differences between different human populations. He even said more than once that he did not find members of the Ethiopian or black race as inferior. Of course, he didn't use the term of Ethiopian or black race. He used the N term, which I'm not going to use.
The N word ending with O, I'm guessing.
Yeah, ending with O. However, his works were completely bastardized by the rest of the scientific community at the time, air quotes, and used as justification to say, okay, humans are divided into these five groups. The Caucasian group is the primary one and the ancestors to all, and the others degenerated from the white group, meaning
Yeah.
that the white group is
Was
superior.
yes,
Also,
the pure like the pure basically
everything.
what then the Nazis like to call the pure master race,
Yeah.
and that then all of the
Also,
other
they
ones kind
said
of
they thought that they degenerated because of their environment,
yeah,
which
because they
is
weren't as
very
like
close to the theory of Lamarck, which is not correct.
yeah, and there was another one which very similar, which I also told you once about, which is kind of like the same principle, but like turned around its head, which is like that there wasn't like a pure one. There wasn't like a one that started. I mean, that not like the Caucasian one wasn't like the pure like master race, right? But that there was like a race, and that we all evolved from it, but that we were the only ones who like became who like evolved positively, and that the other ones, like you said, degenerated,
Generated.
which is basically the same shit, but like just saying that we also took part instead of us having degenerated, we evolved from, but we all evolved from the same thing, which is the same thing, but somehow even more fucked because then it's not saying that we are the original ones that we stayed
You're
pure.
even superior to the original.
Yeah, it's saying that we once were also degenerates, but then we became more than that. It's like, oh, geez.
Yeah. So basically, as science evolved, so did scientific racism. This idea that the white race was superior to other races uh, kept gaining steam. And when the genetic revolution in science occurred, there even sorry, I had to pick something off the floor. There was even a large contingent of the scientific community that tried to look into genetic evidence to back their opinion that the white race was superior to other races. This would, of course, one, justify their worldviews, and two, help them keep this cozy economic situations where they could keep exploiting members of an ethnic group which they deemed inferior
Yeah.
by all characteristics, including genetics.
Yeah, it's like a weird, like it's so depressing because obviously like when we talk about racism, we're not talking about like the origin itself of racism. Like obviously the origin of racism is very basic. It's just that it's literally just, good for us to have it in a way. Not that it's saying that it's a good thing, but like at the time it was like convenient, right? We're like, oh yeah, the other ones are awful and we are good. And that was the origin of it. The origin of it was basically to have a religious sort of ethnocentric explanation to why we deserved to exploit others for our own, wealth, to develop our own countries. But then things, as science evolved and things changed, we then turned to science to try to like justify it. And like, because like at some point we kind of lose, famously as the joke goes, we lose the track of the plot, and we stop being able to recognize that, oh yeah, racism. By the way, racism is fake. Yeah. So after generations of just so much indoctrination into believing that racism actually existed, or in that era, like anthropologists were brutal as fuck. Like they were super, fucked in today's standards, and they took these conclusions of like, yeah, we need to prove genetically, or that there is some sort of like defining characteristic that truly and scientifically can explain to why we are the ones who deserve all the wealth and the others deserve to be raped and pillaged and god knows what else we
I
did to
have
them.
one that absolutely stuck with me, which was, I don't know the name of the man, but he was a French anthropologist, if I'm not mistaken, and he said that in the skull of an African man, you could find a depression on one of the sides of the
Oh
skull,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
which indicated a small part of his brain, which was what caused him to be susceptible and ready to be a slave and subservient to a master. And if a slave tried to escape or was rebellious towards his master, it was because something had damaged his cavity.
Yeah, there was also the one which was very similar, which was that, and it's funny because then obviously when you try to genuinely scientifically prove racism, it's kind of like me, even you, like when we were hanging out, we kind of made this same joke, which or this same parallel, which is like the flat earthers trying to prove that the earth is flat, and then every scientific like thing that they do, they just end up disproving themselves, which is so fucking funny. And it's funny
Yeah.
because like with racism, it's exactly that same thing. They keep trying to prove that like there was some sort of that racism is justifiable. It's justifiable by science, but it isn't. It just isn't. In fact, it's the opposite. It shows us that there isn't any racist per se, and it's funny
Yeah, that's
because
where I was going next. It's
but
why
but
is racism fake?
but for example, there's one which even my history teacher has told us, which is a kind of a funny story, which is that there was this one anthropologist that like went around the world and he like measured the size of the skulls of people, very similar to the one with the cavity, and that he thought that like our Caucasian skulls would be the bigger ones because they had to fit the bigger brains, and that the other ones would be smaller, right? And that there'll
Yes,
be
ours were the smallest.
and the reality is that he didn't. First of all, his like first analysis or his thesis was incorrect, and then he just started noticing that it isn't a constant. Like people, people of one ethnicity or of one skin color would have different skull sizes within themselves. So it's like, all right, I actually can't prove anything. All I did was spend like years of my life measuring a bunch of fucking skulls. God
Yeah,
damn it.
it is a, a psychological theory, not a theory, a theorem that says that at a certain point, bigotry and discrimination will turn towards the size and the form of a skull to try and justify their beliefs. You even saw that within the groups of incel communities on Reddit, which is
Oh yeah,
said,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, you can get a girlfriend because you don't have a chin or
Yeah,
something.
or for example, another thing that they do also with trans people is to say that like, oh, when you die and then in 1,000 years archaeologists find your bones, they will know what sex you are, disproving that you are actually who you say you are. It's like, bruh, yeah, right. Because when I'm dead in 1,000 years, I'm going to give a fuck if the people who find my bones knew that I was trans or not. Right? That is something that somehow deters me from being who I truly am. What the fuck is wrong with people? Jeez, why? Yeah, that is true. Like, there is like a weird tendency for us to like look at the bones to try to prove our bigotry. Such a dumbass behavior.
Yeah. So why racism not true?
Why racism bad?
I'm actually doing this. I didn't just choose this topic out of nowhere. I'm actually doing basically not a master thesis, but goddamn it, it
A
feels
thesis.
like super close. Um, on a biology which is exploring racism and scientific racism through this perspective of genetics and try to dismissify every single argument that is presented. And I have researched a lot, and so have my group colleagues, and we have found a lot of things. One of the best sources of information which I found was the Human Genome Project. Now, I think you know about the Human Genome Project, don't you?
Honestly, I don't. I mean, not by name. I know that's my issue. Is I know a lot of things, but I don't actually know their fucking names. Like,
Yeah, it was at the end of the 20th century, and a group of scientists basically came together to try and map the entirety of the human genome.
oh yeah, that yeah,
Yeah, that's basically. Let
yeah.
me take a sip of water.
I've heard of that. Good old sip.
So, yeah, good old sip. Their website is wonderful. They have so much information. I took an entire 2-hour class just to look at one page. So if you ever have any doubts about the things that I'm going to say, I urge you go read it. It's
He's got
phenomenally
he's
well
got the
explained.
fucking receipts, boys. He's
I
stacked.
always bring the
Your
receipts.
Honor, my client, he's dummy thick when it comes to knowledge.
Your Honor, shut the fuck up.
Your
He wasn't
Honor,
even there.
Your Honor, my client was just feeling goofy and silly. He didn't know he couldn't do that.
So, do you want to guess, like in a percentually, how much do the human genome actually differentiate between different humans?
I mean, I know that like our difference to like a fucking fruit fly is like 2 or 5%. So like some immensely low number, like 0.000001.
Not that low. Not
Not
that
that
low.
low? All right. But it's like it's below one probably. It's very
Yeah,
low.
below one. It's 0.4.
Yeah, it's tremendously low. I mean, the thing is like that difference, like that genetic difference is like as much as you were like, oh yeah, like that's the genetic difference between like a white person and a black person, but that's probably also the difference between like a white person with blue eyes and a white person with like brown eyes. Like it's very like all of us have like a all of us fit between those
Not
4%, right?
just that. When you think of yourself as a human being,
Yeah.
uh, your DNA basically has the coded information for how everything in your body should function.
Yeah.
It's coded in your DNA that you will have bones, you will have muscle, you will probably have arms, legs, feet, fingers,
Yeah.
etc. Nose, a mouth, breathing apparatus. How will it work? How will the other
How bad will
cells
it work in
process
my case right
information?
now?
Yeah. Basically, the DNA to a human being defines everything
Yes, it's like
that,
the coding language of our existence essentially.
yeah, it's basically the building blocks to how a human being must function to
Yeah.
exist. And when you think of that and actually think of what are the differences between us, is basically our form, the appearance of our skin,
Yeah.
eyes, mouth, hair, structure, and then there's a brain part. But that comes later.
Yeah.
So, when you actually think of how much of our biological processes and how much of our physical characteristics we share, you can start to understand why this difference of 0.4% actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And also is at the same time not enough to be racist, you fuck asses.
And that is between humans, period.
Yeah.
A lot of the generic differences that exist within our, well, selves occur because of our parents' genomes and the way that they cross between one another, but
And
also
random
thanks to genetic
mutations, right?
mutations. Exactly. That's why neo Darwinism is a thing.
Yep.
So the amount of information that needs to be dispatched to make someone's skin color a bit darker or lighter is astronomically low compared to the amount of information that tells you you will have blood.
Yeah, it's like it's literally just a difference of like it's a small difference of like
Pigment.
melanin production. That's it.
Yes.
That's
There are
literally it.
a lot of differences and different type of differences that can exist within the DNA, but the amount of DNA that is common between people is almost obsolete. It's almost 100%.
Yeah.
So you have that in mind as the first point. Second thing, it is important to also leave well established. There are no genetic markers that tell you exactly which, air quotes again, race someone belongs to. Genetically, you don't have something that tells you this person is Hispanic or this person is black or this person is white, because our genetics have intermingled so much, and even throughout our evolution have had so many crossings between different ancestries that there is no clear definition of where one group starts and the other begins. Not like that.
Can I ask you a question? Like a
Please.
genuine question. Like, is there even not like a, because like there's a lot of sort of for example, like forensic like analysis that we do, which are based out of like not a certainty, but like a sort of uh, what's it called? A tendency to have this characteristic, even though you're not sure they have it. Uh,
Exactly.
so like this is a genuine question. I'm not even making it a statement, but like, could it is it that it's like kind of the same thing that you could like understand that like all right, this person might have a tendency to have more melanin production or less, but you can't actually tell.
Or bluer eyes or darker
But
hair.
that
Yes,
doesn't, but like you couldn't actually tell, like, oh yeah, this person was like this skin color. No, it's just like this person had more melanin production, but that literally means nothing. That
I
doesn't
believe
actually
so.
define. Okay, that's what I would thought it would be, because like in a lot of
But
cases,
even then, you
like
might have more melanin production, but how does that difference you from someone
yeah, because
in
it's like
India and someone in South Africa?
because like if you take one of those like 23andMe things, right? Like with the type of analysis that they do is not actually like they say like they give you like those like random traits, which is like, oh, you have this percentage of being like addicted to caffeine, or you have you have these like this chance of like getting this certain chronic illness or some shit like that. And it's like, all right,
I
yeah,
don't want to
sure,
do that.
like
Just
genetically, like I'm sure that like my family has like these certain traits, but that doesn't mean that I actually develop these traits. Or like, for example, there's like a lot of people that are like, yeah, you have this tendency to like be like deeply addicted to coffee like you are. And the
I'm
person's
not
like,
addicted
yeah,
to coffee. I'm a connoisseur.
sure. That's what they all say. You can
I
also
haven't
stop.
drank coffee in like a week. Give me a
Yeah,
break.
you can also stop whenever you want.
I
But
literally did that. I subbed for 4 months for a bet.
hey, you're coping. You're coping. This is you're lashing out. This is a sign that you are indeed addicted. Uh,
I am not addicted. I'm not.
uh,
Please. I am not trembling.
but there is like these certain things which like are sure you might have like a genetic tendency to have these characteristics. That doesn't mean that you actually have them. So that's why I thought of that. It probably when it
You
comes to
also need to
when
remember
it
that genetic code evolves thanks to your living conditions.
yeah, that's why I was like asking, like that's probably I'm guessing that when it comes to like skin color, it's literally the exact same shit or
Like if you live
similar.
in a year in Norway and a year in Africa, you will have a different skin color by then.
Oh yeah, you'll be pasty white or like look Latino-esque, like that sort of like bronzish look to you.
Yeah.
Like it's going to be, yeah, I mean I get that. Like I used to live in Belgium obviously, which is a very rainy and
You see,
gloomy
like
character, and
you
and I
have
and I and I recognize that like throughout my entire life I used to be very pasty, right? And that now I'm much darker in skin. And last year, right, in the summer when I went to Belgium, I have a Muslim friend, and his mom is Moroccan and his father is Egyptian, right? He's like a proper, he is Islamic, but he is like a he's from Arab descent, and I am darker than him, much darker. He's so white right now because he gets so little sun that he's pasty white,
yeah.
even though he is not deemed as white, but indeed like as a brown person or as an Arab, right?
You take a
So
look at our weather in Portugal. We have so many variations in weather. Like right now, it's cloudy, it's moody, it's raining, and it's cold. And then you reach summer. It's like, oh yeah, 35 degrees Celsius. Let's go to the beach and get toasted. And across the entirety of 1 year, you can see so many differences in your own skin tone, depending on how much sun you've been getting.
Yeah.
That's literally the difference. There's a specific term for this. It's your genotypical characteristics and phenotypical
Yeah, it's like those characteristics which develop because of your
genetics.
surroundings, and it's funny
And
because
those
like
that develop because of your genetics. Yeah.
anybody who's like deeply has like a deep phenomena or like really loves the idea of like evolution, right? And like is very, and I don't know, I just like thinking about it. It's like it's such a like saying that you like one skin like one ethnicity is superior to the other is such a wrong thing,
Yeah.
because objectively speaking there is no superior one. You could make the argument that like, oh yeah, a white person is genetically inferior if they are like in utopia, because they are, genetically they're out of place, so like they're going to be much more, they're going to probably have a higher chance of getting skin cancer or having these issues. And in the same way that a darker skinned person or like a black person, if they live in Norway, they're probably going to have to like take supplements like because of their the lack of sun. So there is like, you could say that, yeah, like if you are in a specific place that genetically you're probably going to be at a disadvantage purely from like a health point of view, because you like your ancestors were not evolved to like, or didn't adapt to that environment. But that doesn't mean that like one is
That is
superior to
a
the other.
fallacy you just said there. It's not you saw well, but then you turned into a big problem when it comes to discussing evolution. It's not that the ancestors evolved to the place; it's just that those that were better adapted to the place
Yeah, I
survived, while the others
I
fucking
tried
died
to
or left.
I tried to figure. I said evolved, and I was like, nope, that's not it. I said that's why I said adapted. Like it's at the end of the day, like evolution is like the big daddy of adapting. It's like when you have adapted so much to the point where you've
It's
like,
literally a battle royale with life.
yeah, it's like to not to toot my own horn, because I've been talking about a lot about this in the last couple of blogs. But like if you look at it like through so like the Marxist philosophy,
Oh,
you
fuck.
hold
Oh,
up,
yeah.
hold up. There's a logic to it. There's like like in dialectics they talk about like there's like small changes, right? And these small changes can be like the difference between water being at like 50 degrees and 51 degrees Celsius, right? That is a small change.
The what?
Hold up. There's a logic
Wait,
to this.
50 degrees Celsius water? Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I mean, but there's no difference, right? There is a difference, but it's small. There is small enough for there to just look like water. However, the difference between 99 degrees and 100 degrees when it comes to water is just 1 degree, but that is a big enough, right? That is small yet big enough for there to be suddenly a difference of state. So I'm guessing that when it comes to like the defining what evolution is and the difference between adapting is probably something similar, where like small adaptations are not considered evolution, but there is like a certain threshold, a certain amount of adaptation, which is then considered evolution, right?
I mean, for example, it has been found out that people with blue eyes have one common ancestor.
Yeah, yeah.
There was one fucker who had a genetic mutation that gave him blue eyes, and
That motherfucker started fucking, and he started spreading his genes.
imagine the amount of eye colors that don't exist now because we didn't have that one person.
Yeah, true. Yeah, like so hazelish
Might have had
eyes.
yellow eyes if the guy could get laid.
True. But yeah, but there is, because I don't know how if this is the true definition, but like there are things which are like, how do I put this? Like is it would it I don't know, is it considered that like dogs are an evolution from wolves, or are they just considered an adaptation? Because I believe that until pretty recently they were considered like a full-on different species, but that nowadays they aren't considered a different species, but just a branch of it. I don't know. It's the science when it comes to terminology gets a little goofy.
They descended. That's
Yeah,
the term. They
right.
descended from the gray wolf.
But they aren't considered like an evolutionary step, right?
it is said that they adapted, they descended and adapted. So I'm pretty sure
All right.
that they are different
That's a
species.
no then, because I guess that's the same thing with humans, right? Like we're not different enough to like actually be a different species. It's just that our world is so big and so like vast when it comes to geography that it's inevitable that we have slight differences to
I mean,
to
they
to
are
adapt to our
considered,
environment.
like, dogs and wolves are considered subspecies. But now think of the differences in dog breeds. You
Yeah,
could
like
have, you have
a
a
pug
Chihuahua
does not look. Yeah, a Chihuahua does not look like a fucking like a Doberman. Like
German
these are
Shepherd, something like that, and they are
yeah.
still a dog.
Like they look like completely like there are more like visually speaking like a wolf is closer to a husky than like a husky to a fucking chihuahua, and yet one is supposedly a different like supposed to be a different animal and the other one isn't. It's the same species. Like what the fuck, like it makes no sense to say like yeah these are both dogs, this is one species. Like how the fuck one is a little rat and the other one is like a majestic very screamy animal, because huskies scream a lot for some reason.
I love huskies.
They're
The myth
so
that
goofy. They
huskies
just
are
randomly
dumb
start
is so stupid.
screaming.
Yeah,
They're like
I would have
so
a husky. I would
same.
100% have a husky. So I wanted to go into the last point, which is full circles. The differences that are acquisited to racism when it comes to temperament and intelligence are not thanks to genetic factors, but thanks to the environment in which people are born.
Yeah, good old material conditions, baby.
Yeah, there was a study done in the second part of the 20th century in Mexico that saw that children who lived in households that champion just knowledge. I hate saying like that, but that gave them
I
books
have a
and
lot of
activities.
knowledge.
Shut the fuck up. And the opportunity to learn would develop a higher IQ compared to those who were just left to their own devices and didn't have love and attention from their parents.
Yeah, there's also that one study that showed that, like, for example, like first generation immigrants in the US are typically smarter. Not first generation, like the children of the first generation immigrants. So the second generation, immigrants are usually have much higher intelligence than like third and fourth, because like the second generation immigrants usually have like the pressure of their parents to be like, oh yeah, like we brought you here, we want you to have like a good life. So they have like that a huge pressure of like being able to be introduced into like the neoliberal like financial like economics system, right? But then like the third generation is now more comfortable because of the fruit of the work and the new conditions that the second generation achieved. So now they're like more lazy and they don't have to work as much because they don't
And not
have
only
as
that, maybe the household environment that they have is not exactly
yeah it's
two
different
people
because
who share the same culture, but someone who still shares the immigrant culture and the native culture.
yeah there's like a sort of dilution, right? There's like a dilution of like of the original culture per se, because like the second generation is more assimilated to the culture that they were that they came to.
Yeah.
They also now have less, again, less pressure. They have a different view than the generation before that.
The
So
Americans
usually
call that the melting pot.
so yeah, exactly. So after a while,
Yeah.
after some generations, you kind of become fully assimilated and you become a dumbass American.
It's this idea that you're gonna be an American, you're gonna fucking be an American.
Yeah, I gotta be dumb and stupid and illiterate. Can I tell you something really funny that I saw the other day
Yeah,
on TikTok? There was like this super west, like southern girl. Like she has like the most Texas yeehaw ass accent
yeah,
ever. Like the most stereotypical accent you can ever imagine. And then she was like, I used to be a super conservative, and I used to love God and hate gays and all that. And then I read one book and I became a communist. And I was like, oh my God. Oh my God, Americans. All you have to do is read a fucking book. You'll probably say you don't read, just read one book and you'll be like, oh, I'm wrong in everything I do. I need to turn to communism. And it was such a funny, like, it felt like it was such a genuine video, right? But it felt like such a meme of like, ah, yes, dumbass American reads one book and suddenly becomes a commie. It's like, damn, it really doesn't take much, huh?
I love that video of a girl going like, "How could we be? How could we go to the moon if the average human can only hold their breaths for 5 minutes?"
Yeah.
Like, how did Louis Armstrong get to the moon? And I'm just imagining, like, fucking Louis Armstrong with his saxophone going, I see moons of gray,
Yeah,
gray planes too.
or like the
I'm colorblind.
or like the idea. There's like this one lady on TikTok that was like, "What if scuba divers could only have tanks for 1 hour? How is it possible that that like astronauts went to the moon with an with the same type of air tank that scuba divers use?" It's like, what the fuck are you
Well, that
talking
lady
about?
that went, if Britain is 6 hours ahead of us, why don't they tell us the future?
Yeah, why didn't they warn us about 9/11? There's also that one. Like
Oh, that's so
no,
bad.
that this is actual satire. That's from a Misfits video where like they said of like
Oh, thank God.
they were like making jokes with like they're Australian because they're like in Australia, right? So they're like what the fuck? If you're 12 hours ahead, why the fuck didn't you 12 hours? No,
First about
24 hours. If you're a day ahead of us, why the fuck didn't you warn us about 9/11? They're like, I don't know. We thought we would be a little silly, you know, we would decide to prank you a little bit and not tell you about how they were gonna hit the fucking Pentagon. And
Hit the Pentagon.
they hit the fucking Pentagon.
I love that video.
Yeah. So where were we? What were we talking about?
Racism.
Yeah, true. It's funny how like the moment we talk about racism, our mind directly goes to the United States. Why is that, huh? Why is
I
that
mean,
our
6 out of 10 crimes in the United States are racially motivated.
yeah? And the U.S. is like racism heaven. Like Jesus Christ. Like
Great name, the Son of God.
like
I
they
love
are
that.
they're quite literally, I mean, America is quite literally built upon the corpses of millions of slaves, and their systemic racism is so entrenched that like basically at this point it feels like only a fucking Tsar Bomber could
I
fucking
gotta
fix
fucking
that place.
share this. Like my one of my cousins is in art school, and she has a teacher, a history teacher, that turned to a Brazilian classmate of hers and said, "Stop using that non-Portuguese accent and use a normal Portuguese accent." And then she justified it with saying, "Oh, this is positive xenophobia." Yeah,
I am dumbfounded.
yeah,
Holy shit! You have made
yeah.
my jaw drop. Holy shit!
My brain committed suicide.
It's not xenophobia. It's just positive affirmation. It's like, what? No. What are you
I
talking
directed
about?
to concentration camps. This is
It's
positive reinforcement.
we're not yeah, like the Nazis weren't trying to, you know, exterminate the Jews. They were only trying to positively affirm them to death. Like you don't understand. Like Hitler was a deeply misunderstood man, as George Orwell put it. Like he was just feeling in a silly mood, and people just he was ahead of his time. You know, he was
He was
goofy.
ahead of his. You know
And people just
when
didn't understand his goofy antics, you know? That's all it is. He's just a little
you
silly.
know who actually was the biggest foundation for Hitler's anti-Semitic beliefs?
Stupidity?
No, no, a person. The person.
Oh, the person. And a stupid person, that's for sure.
You're gonna fucking love this. Henry Ford.
Oh, yeah, I know that. Yeah.
He wrote a book called Jews, the foremost problem of the world, and it was obligatory that that book would be distributed in every single Ford's manufacturing plant and every single Ford distribution center, and also he had it translated.
Oh,
And
boy.
it was sent to a lot of places, including Austria, where this young child called Adolf Hitler, who had just lost his mother and been kicked out of art school, read it and went, "I'm gonna do
Huh.
a little mischief."
This sounds fun. I should write a book about this called The Mind Cut. Sorry. Yeah, I need to tell this to somebody. Speaking of racism, like you know how like George Orwell is like deemed like one of the most esteemed writers ever, like a visionary.
Yeah, I read 1984.
Apparently he was like, first of all, he was like a massive racist. He was also the most paranoid fucker you'll ever meet. He had a
Oh no, really?
he
George Orwell, I could never see that happen.
he kept a list of all the people he knew, and he basically kept track of why they were suspicious and why they were problematic. And some of them were basically just is Jewish. and stuff like that, right? He wanted in some of his
I
books
don't see
he would
anything about George Orwell being racist.
there was no he was like a colonial cop at some point, and he like in I don't remember in what country in Africa it was, but he like basically was like, I kind of hate being a colonial cop because it does I don't want to like protect, I don't want to like fight for the colonial power, but the people that I'm policing, right, the minorities that policing sure aren't making my job easier anyways, which is like such a like a whoa, what, like, yeah, I don't
I
want to
don't see
protect.
anything about him being racist.
No,
So
I can send you a lot of videos about it. There's a surprisingly high amount of it, but
please,
there,
please, no, no, not
there
the
was
TikTok
also
videos.
no, there's not a TikTok. But there's also the thing which apparently uh he even wrote about this. The things that I'm saying are not like uh supposed ideas, or these are things that he wrote in his books, like actual
I
like.
am sorry. I am going to ask you for
But
the fucking
there's
receipts on this.
there is like a thing where he said that like he had a girlfriend, right? He was already an adult, I think, and he had like a 15-year-old girlfriend, and that he wanted to seduce her, and that he wasn't able to, and that she went away crying because he tried to have sex with her and she didn't want to, and that he saw that as like a failed seduction. And it's just like
Okay, I'm gonna ask you. I'm gonna put a pinhole on this conversation,
yeah.
so you might
Anyways,
later.
he
Like
was
I
yeah,
see. You know, you ever heard of
he was problematic to say the least.
Lovecraft? H.P.
Yeah,
Lovecraft?
yeah.
Yeah, that guy was fucking racist, but in the English sense, which was not about like the color of your skin, it was about purity. You had to
Oh,
be a pure Englishman,
yeah,
and
yeah,
so he was
yeah.
afraid of everything and everyone that wasn't his childhood home. He stopped his studying because he had a constitution that was too fine for math.
Whatever the fuck that
Yeah,
means.
yeah, and he died of probably a diagnosed cancer alone back in his home house, and he was terribly afraid of anything that he didn't deem ordinary. For example, he wrote a story about the horrors of ventilation.
Of what?
I'm pretty sure I used the wrong word. Air
I
conditioning, that's the thing.
oh what?
Air
He
conditioning.
was scared of air conditioners?
Yeah, there was a
What the
story about
fuck?
a doctor that was dead but kept himself alive thanks to air conditioning.
That's like Lewis Hamilton, right? The Formula One driver being afraid of onions. He's actually afraid of onions, by the way. I don't know why.
That's funny.
He has like a phobia of onions. Fucking H.P. Lovecraft had a phobia of
No, but like
air
H.P.
conditioners.
Lovecraft learned that there was a bigger spectrum of light, and he said, "You mean to say that there are other colors that we do not perceive? What terrors could they induce?" And wrote a story about mysterious colors never seen on Earth before, who terrorized the village and fucking killed everyone.
God, writers are such dweebs and such morons, including the ones I like geez, like
I mean, you know Cthulhu, the main
yeah,
guy,
thing,
right?
yeah.
He supposedly fight the sailors that find him in a non-Euclidean island,
What
which
the
is
fuck?
fucking stupid because every single piece of geometry in on Earth is non-Euclidean because it's on a circle.
Okay, anyways, the reason I talked about George Orwell is because there was like this thing which I saw which was so funny. And it was like an actual like citation from a book. I don't remember which book, but there was like he was like talking about a person, right? And like in several times in that book he would like mention a person, and then right afterwards he would like in parentheses be like Jew? Question mark? Jewy? And I was like, what do you mean? It's like, what the fuck do you mean? It's like imagine like me writing a book about Hitler, and this would actually like be warranted, right? But
I
it
mean, you
would,
do not know the context of the
but
book.
I know,
That
but
is
it's
not
like,
fair. The
but it's
character
still,
might be a Jew hunter, and he's just asking to himself, "Is this guy a Jew?"
but it's
I
such
have,
like a
I have
questionable like Jew question mark. It's like why is that? Why do you need to question that? But it's like
might make sense to the character. Let's not judge the book by its cover.
it's like me writing a book about Hitler and just being like Adolf Hitler, oh Adolf Hitler, and then in parentheses racist question mark. It's like,
It's not okay. I see where you're going with that, and it's not the same thing. Come on,
but yeah,
I'm here to pull you down to the fucking earth.
but I have some funny things to show you. Anyway, that
Okay,
sounded really wrong. I have something to show you.
ever heard of the
Law
Monte
and
Carlo?
Order, Law and Order intro, please. What Monte Carlo?
Monteago, sorry. It's a Edgar Allan Poe story about two best friends who have a quarrel, and the guy just says, "I have this fine casket of wine, this small room. And then
Oh
he just
yeah.
puts the pen inside and just started like breaking up the wall. Okay, this
It's like
he was getting quite love.
I have something in my basement to show you. It's very fun. And I'll be right there with you. Trust me,
Yeah.
I'm definitely not gonna
You
kill
remember
you.
that TV show, The Fall of House Usher?
Yeah, that you've been rambling about for the last month. Yeah.
Yeah, have you watched it yet?
I haven't watched anything. In fact, I'm pretty
You-
much blind out
Okay.
of my left eye. And sorry, I had to do the meme.
Yeah, they basically do that to a character, and he's
Oh,
dressed as a fool during a carnival party or Halloween, which is how the story goes. Like there is a huge party, and this friend just says, "Yeah, he's my best friend. I hate him though. I want to see him suffer.
what
I'm
the
not gonna
fuck?
tell you why because everything's so horrendous that it would hurt you so much. Rather not say anything."
Right, those people need therapy, man.
Yeah,
Anyways,
you don't fucking say. The
but
Victorians, man, Victorians.
but yeah, I don't know. Like, to kind of summarize, do you have a conclusion to give for the article, or can I do
Yeah, I
it?
have a fucking conclusion.
Go
Racism is
pop off.
stupid.
All right, yep. Is that it?
Okay, I was educated so far. Now it's my time to go. There is zero scientific backing of any kind, and there has never been that would justify any type of differentiation between races. And the idea that science supports that one group of people who can be quantified as a race is superior to the other is fucking bonkers and idiotic. And if someone defends that position, they are a spectacular specimen of the Donning-Kruger effect because they clearly don't know shit about a topic and still have the extreme amount of confidence necessary to say such bullshit as that.
And
Racism is, in all senses of the word, unrational.
made up.
Exactly. It is a fiction made up by greedy, fearful men and women who
Yeah,
wanted to keep an economic system which benefited them and ignored the necessities of hundreds of thousands of people, of millions of people, and still to this day it is kept by those in power as a good way to be able to control the
yeah.
population.
As a tool.
Because if someone fears some other group, you will always be able to control them.
One of like the fundamental things that for example Marxists talk about, right, is like exactly that. There is so many like sexism, racism, misogyny, like all these different like societal like issues that we have, which have to do with, you know, perpetuating a hatred towards one minority, all have one single fucking origin, and that is a bunch of greedy people trying to keep their supremacy at all costs, and they are willing to make up any shit to do so. That is literally if you start analyzing, every single societal issue comes from one single group of people who are greedy as fuck, trying to stay rich. Literally all of them, which is such a mind-blowing idea, because even if you're like, you know what, you know, racism can't be proved, but why does it exist? If it exists, it must have some sort of like logical foundation. No, fuck you, because when you start analyzing, holy shit, I'm gonna die. When you start analyzing things,
Die.
and you say die?
Yeah, you said, "Holy shit, I'm gonna die." I said, "Don't die."
Oh, I thought you said died.
Jesus Christ.
Die. But
Sorry.
when you started looking at it, and we even talked about this, like when I was talking about like the origin of the patriarchy, it's the exact same shit. Up until a certain point, the origin of the patriarchy and the origin of racism is quite literally the exact same. It is a bunch of rich fucks going, hey, we need to oppress a group to keep our dominance, to keep our wealth. And the only difference is that one was women and the other one was anybody who isn't white. It's the exact same shit. It's always the same shit. It's just that it's always the exact same thought process, always the same underlying ideas or dumbass ideas, but they're just covered up with a different face, a different name, and a different target of said oppression. But it's always the same shit. Racism only exists, and in the modern day, we could always talk about the past, but in modern day, racism only exists to keep the Western world in power, to justify that Western powers are somehow superior than the other ones. That is literally the only reason it exists. there's no scientific or logical explanation to why. I mean, there is, I guess, a logical explanation to why racism exists, but there is no logical justification for racism to keep existing. It's just like you said, Alpha. It's a fucking tool. It's a tool for fear mongering, for brainwashing people into hating the wrong person. Essentially, is to keep us divided. It's divide and conquer. That is their fucking method, is to divide us and make sure that we are a bunch of dumb little goons who will do whatever the fuck they want to us and to establish their riches. And even though they tell us that, oh, but we'll benefit from it too. No, we don't. Fuck no. Like, it's like we're basically a bunch of Stockholm syndrome, fucking victims who have like the idea that like, oh no, if I perpetuate, racist ideas, if I perpetuate neoliberalism, at some point I'll become rich and successful. Boy, shut up, die, fuck you. Like you are dumb. Like you are dumb. Like you have no idea what you're talking about. You've been so brainwashed that you believe that somehow there is a meritocracy in the world, that somehow you are different, and you will somehow break the chains that everybody else has because you are just somehow different. How different are you? Nobody knows, but you are just slightly more special because you can't fathom that you're just another human and that has no real inherent difference from each other. Like it's true.
But Red, let's say hypothetically that you are a baby girl.
Let's say that hypothetically Ben Shapiro cannot pleasure his wife. What?
This went back to the beginning of our conversation. With
Yeah,
Ben
before we even started recording the episode. Before we started recording the episode, we were doing shitty Ben Shapiro impressions and basically saying that he can't pleasure his wife, which is true. It's a fun fact. He has admitted to it, basically, at this point.
I love that his sister has an OnlyFans.
His sister is good looking.
Well doubted.
Is a woman of tremendous beauty, let's say.
I just fucking remembered. Have you watched Coraline, like the movie?
I think I might have, but
Scary animation one.
Yeah, with the weird button eye people.
Yeah. I rewatched it the other day, and there are these two old actresses.
Yeah.
And there is a scene where they are basically naked.
Oh.
And I was just thinking, how did my small infant brain censor this? Like,
yeah.
Bitch, what the fuck?
That's some traumatic. That's traumatic. That's some traumatic shit. That's some traumatic shit. Like, there's certain weird shit. I mean, it's basically like the.
My girl had some features that could rival that of a porn star. It was actually terrifying.
I thought you were gonna say because they're old, they're like that they were flabby, if you know what I mean.
Not really.
All right, yeah, some MILFs, but
yeah, that movie was ahead of its time.
Yeah, and very weird. Tim Burton is over here. Is that from Tim Burton?
I myself asleep for a long time.
Is that film from Tim Burton? Is it not? It feels like it would be, right?
It is from Henry Selick.
Never mind. No, it is the type of movie that Tim Burton I feel like would make, anyways.
Henry Selick also directed James and the Giant Peach.
Makes sense. Yeah. Also a movie that I watched in my childhood, which is so. Those movies are so weird. Like
they are scary.
Yeah, like, unnecessarily scary for like a moral of the story, which is so basic and just ugh.
They introduced me to horror, so.
Yeah, but it was horror because not because it was scary, because it was horribly bad. Like that's what horror, like that's the horror element of those movies, how horribly bad it is. I mean, objectively speaking, from like an artistic point of view, they're good, right? They're like stop motion, they're very well made. But like as a child, I would watch them and I'm like, this sucks. I'm not having fun right now. The story is weird. Characters look creepy as fuck. They look all gruesome-y and wrinkly and deformed and shit. And then the story itself is so and it's like, what am I doing, man? It's wasting my time. I don't like those movies. They ruined my childhood trauma, people. That's what I'm attributing it to. At the end of the day, it's all about childhood trauma.
Freud looking at the corner being like,
Mom. Speaking of Freud, there's this one funny story that my mom tells me, right? About how like when she was taking her master's degree in psychology, there was like this one teacher who like was like it really just looked like those like drunken teachers that would like go to school and be like drunk as fuck, right? And he just randomly went, just if there's anything you can take from my lessons, is that anything you have ever thought of, fucking Freud has thought of it somehow. And like my mom was like, what the fuck is he talking about? And like to this day, like our theory is that like probably that like psychology teacher like was working up some sort of like theory about like psychology or something, and then he suddenly found out that like fucking Freud had talked about it already, and he was like,
Yeah.
motherfucking Freud, he stole my idea, and I was like pissed off.
Other idea, and Freud did the same thing.
And it's like, son of a bitch, like fucking Freud. It's like,
That reminded me of the Kill and Peel video of the substitute teacher.
yeah, it was such a like a random thing. It was like such a random thing of like a teacher to go like to a class like fucking Freud, man. It's like what did Freud
Jake
do
Wallen.
to you?
Jake Wallen.
Jake Wallen, Aaron,
Janine.
son of a. If one motherfucker says a weird ass goofy name, I'm gonna lose it.
I love that video.
Such a shame that that one of them is a massive Zionist. Anyways, what?
I did not know that. Holy
Yeah, it
fuck.
really made the whole like Israel thing has made me so disappointed on so many levels. One, the whole situation by itself is so depressing, and then seeing so many celebrities which you actually looked up to siding with Israel is like, kill me now. Like it makes me so sad. It's like, no, please be smart.
I
Although
must become
on the other hand, you do also see the ones that support Palestine. You're like, I knew it. I knew you were a decent fucking human being. Let's fucking go.
like the lead actors for the Scream movies, the new ones.
Oh yeah,
He was fired.
and the guy who plays Obi-Wan Kenobi in like the old
I was going to say, Ewan McGregor, what? My boy.
yeah, Ewan McGregor. He sided with Palestine. I was like, let's fucking go.
Oh, okay.
Let's fucking
Kind of
go.
scared me on that one.
No, there was some that disappointed me. Like Mark Hamill sided with Israel. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
but he was the Joker, so not really.
Not like the ways well enough.
Yeah, but there was some which really disappointed me. Some which unsurprisingly disappointed me, like Adam Sandler. He's Jewish, so he sided with Israel. Paul Rudd sided with Israel. Yeah, I know you're feeling my pain now. You're going to share my pain. And there was a lot of them who sided with Israel, but there's also some which sided with Palestine. I can't remember which ones. This was months ago when I saw this list, but there was like that letter that they wrote to to Biden, and I was like, I was so disappointed with some of the names. It actually made me fucking cry. I don't know why, but I was like looking at, I was like, it was like late at night. I was like, that shit was like popping up on my TikTok like every 5 minutes, and I was like just going through the list and like seeing these people.
Like,
It's like fucking social. What's it called? Social. Parasocial type shit. It's like me seeing a bunch of people who I'm like, who I've looked up to in my childhood. I'm like, wow.
have you seen the photograph of Ryan Reynolds and Andrew Garfield kissing?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Right. Andrew Garfield was one on the Palestine list. That made me really happy. Yeah, that's an awesome photo. Really.
Yeah, that guy has the personality of a golden retriever.
Yeah, they both have the personality of golden retriever.
Yeah,
I love Ryan
that
Reynolds.
that photograph is,
Sexually too. Huh?
yeah,
What?
Ryan Reynolds just next to his wife kissing Andrew Garfield.
Yeah. Ooh, god damn. That couple is such an attractive couple. Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively. Ooh.
Yeah. Have you seen their
Ooh.
son? Goddamn, good genetics.
I've not seen their children, to be fair. But yeah, like they are to me the quintessential. If there's one straight couple I would have to defend, it is them. They are the straight couple. A bunch of hotties, which clearly, I mean, Blake Lively has played some sapphic characters in the past, and she does look a little, she does look like she would kiss women unironically, and Ryan Reynolds definitely looks like he would kiss men unironically too. So there is
that Ryan Reynolds kiss me.
like there
Have
is like
you seen my guy?
yeah, if like sorry, pardon my terminology here, but they look like they're like equally fruity for each other and for other people. Like there's something
And
there.
with this being said, I think we have concluded today's episode.
Yeah, they feel like a bisexual couple who's like actually straight because they're like a man and a woman, right? Like that's how they feel. Like yet they supposedly are both straight, but you never know. Sexuality is fluid. Who gives a fuck? Kiss whoever the fuck you want. Kiss men. Kiss big hairy men. Well, what?
Just don't kiss children, and you're fine.
As long as you love people who can give consent, and those who can give consent are adults, not children, you weird fucks. As long as it's a consenting adult, kiss whoever the fuck you want.
Kiss your granny.
Don't do that.
Who's from Alabama?
Actually, can I leave this on like the most fucked and like yikes moment ever?
Oh no. Sure.
Like I was talking about this with my mom, right? And like there is like a genetic like part or like there's a evolutionary like incest plays a part in evolution, right? When it comes to like when you think about like Darwin, right? Like people have incest, right? Like the child is born and it's like all fucked up and shit.
Yeah,
and like and it's like basically like it's a way to like cleanse off, which is such a fucked term, but like we have to think about this in like thousands and thousands of years ago, not in like current times, but like back when we were evolving, right? There was like a clear like use for incest, and we also know that like mathematically it would be impossible for us to be here, all of us, all 8 billion of us, if there wasn't a lot of incest in the past.
Royal families be like.
Yeah, royal families, the biggest supporters of incest, literally. And obviously, like incest is like deemed morally wrong, but like also not being able to recognize like the scientific, like explanation behind why incest is wrong, and but also why it has taken an important part of our evolution as humans and who we are today, and just being like, no, incest is wrong, period, is also kind of a dumb thing if you think about it. Because like,
I don't agree with that.
No, not in the sense of like, oh yeah, let's start doing incest, right? But like say that like, oh, incest is morally wrong because God.
No, that's not it. It's just incest.
Incest just breeds a bunch of goobers. Sorry.
Yeah, that's basically the problem.
Have you seen that one family in like some random ass like deserted place in like in like the woods of like some American state, where like they're like second generation, they're like a bunch of children of like an incestuous relationship, and there's like a bunch of brothers and sisters who like live together in like this really decrepit shed, and it's like so like, I don't even know. It's like disturbing almost, and it's almost saddening to like see like they are clearly suffering. They have like they're almost none of them can speak. I think only one of them has like slight speech capabilities because of like how genetically misfortunate they are.
It is, to put it lightly.
Yeah, to put it lightly. And it's so like, oh, it's sad. It's sad to see like them suffering because they didn't ask to be brought up into this world, and they're just suffering slowly. And it's so sad. It's also sad that like they're like seen as like a spectacle for like media to, like, oh, look at these incestual babies. It's like, oh, look at these incest babies. They're all deformed and shit. And it's...
Sorry.
And it's wrong. But I don't know. It's sad. Incest is like one of those things which, like, yeah, it had a place in society. Now we see it as a wrong thing. But like when it happens,
definitely don't think that incest had a place in society. To be honest,
no, it not that it had a place in society, but that it happened, and that it was like a necessary thing to exist for our development. And whether we like to admit it or not, it happened. It fucking happened.
Do you know that cheetahs are massively inbred because their population is cheetahs?
Oh, cheetahs. Yeah.
And they have a bunch of health issues because of that.
I mean, a lot of dogs are basically fruit of incest. Like, they're a bunch of incestuous babies. Like think about it. Like, to breed like dogs to like the perfect race, we have to like cross. We have to breed them like in between each other to like between their moms and their dads and all. They're like, it's a really fucked thing. Actually, I think about it. Is there like, are we as humans just like exceptionally like ass at incest? Like, that sounds very weird when I say that, because like
I think most mammals are
Because,
not good at it.
but isn't there like clearly? I mean, I might be wrong here. That's pure speculation. I'm asking you Alpha, because you know more about this than me. But like, isn't there like a clear sort of vibe that like us humans, anytime we do incest, our babies are just fucked up, and like there's clearly a lot of still incest in nature. It doesn't seem to be as like as bad, or like they don't seem to
I
suffer
mean,
as much as
when it comes
us.
to mammals, definitely there is a lot of problems when it comes to incest because of the nature of our genetic code.
Yeah,
I don't know everything about it because I am not that smart, and I don't know about enough about biology.
yeah,
But yeah, there is humans have a like mammals have a clear problem with incest.
yeah. Maybe it's because like think about it. Like there's like we achieve like the maximum amount of incest we can do
We
before.
achieve the maximum amount of incest.
No. Okay, this sounds so dumb. Like this.
Insect crime.
Like think about it. Like imagine like there was like humans, right? And like we kept doing incest. And in the beginning, maybe we weren't as deformed and shit, but like we did it so much that we kind of achieved the point at which we were so like
Okay,
genetically.
I'm going to hijack this conversation. We have gone off the rails.
I don't know, man. I'm thinking about it. I'm
I don't want to
thinking.
think about incest.
Yeah, true. That's true. I don't know. Just
Yeah,
biology does, I don't know, interest me, I guess. But I mean, good. I don't know. I'm gonna stop talking.
you are barking at the wrong tree. I'm not that good at biology.
Anyways, sorry for that weird ass ending. That's totally on
Thank you,
me.
everyone, for syncing with us through the incest.
Is there? Yeah. Sorry for the incest and the incestual ending.
Oh, further my incest. What the
Oh,
fuck?
oh yeah. Have you seen that? Have you seen that meme of like, uh, that one like conservative guy with like the what's it called, the Confederate flag, and he like instead of saying my ancestors, he said my incestors as
No,
like
but that's
incest.
hilarious.
It's like, oh my god, like you, it was like, oh, like fighting for my ancestors. It was like some shit like that. He like wanted to write ancestors, but like wrote incest. But because he was like a redneck conservative, with like a guy, I
Yeah,
was like,
we
yeah,
have.
he might. I don't know, is that ironic, or is he actually for real? It's like, is he actually like admitting that he has like a bunch of incest in his ancestry? Like maybe he is. We don't know. He might be just being, very open about it, very transparent about his past. Anyways, if you enjoyed this weird ass episode, make sure to support us over on Patreon. If you can support us on Patreon, check out our website. The description is in the below. Good wording. The link is in the description below if you're on YouTube. You can also then, of course, join our Discord server. We have the Q&A. We don't have any questions today, but you can submit questions if you also support us on Patreon and join Discord. And of course, join us on. I'm having a mental breakdown right now. And follow us on social media so you can check out what we're doing. And with that being said, we'll see you all in the next episode. Goodbye,
Bye bye,
everybody.
everyone.